Commander Valethus pressed his delicate, translucent hands against the control panel of the research vessel, Silent Dawn. His large, compound eyes reflected the peaceful blue glow of the Omega Nebula streaming past the viewport. The Vextari had been traveling through this remote sector for 3 days now, their ship loaded with precious medical samples that could save millions of lives across the galaxy. "Commander," whispered his science officer Zephlin, her moth-like wings trembling with excitement, "the protein synthesis data from the healer's world is incredible. We could cure the red plague that's been killing children in the outer colonies." Valethus nodded, his antennae twitching with satisfaction. The Vextari were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful healers, their entire civilization dedicated to preserving life. Their research vessel carried no weapons, only advanced medical equipment and the hopes of countless dying beings. That's when the first explosion hit. The Silent Dawn shuddered violently as plasma fire erupted across its hull. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in crimson as alarms screamed through the corridors. Valethus stumbled, his fragile frame thrown against the navigation console. "What's happening?" he gasped, watching in horror as his view screen filled with 7 massive predatory ships emerging from nowhere. The vessels were black as space itself, their hulls covered in spikes and weapon ports. Krathver hunter ships. "They were cloaked, Commander." Zephlin's voice cracked with terror. 7 of them, surrounding us completely. The Krathver were the nightmare that haunted every peaceful species in the galaxy. These reptilian monsters made their living by capturing other beings and selling their organs to the highest bidder. They were perfectly adapted killers, advanced technology stolen from 100 different civilizations. Another barrage of plasma fire slammed into the Silent Dawn. The ship's shields flickered and died, leaving them defenseless. Through the viewscreen, Valethus could see the hunter ships moving with deadly precision, like wolves circling wounded prey. "They're using plasma nets," screamed the communications officer. "They're trying to disable our engines without destroying the ship." Valethus understood immediately. Krathver wanted them alive. Dead organs weren't worth as much as fresh ones. The bridge shook again as another net wrapped around their hull. Sparks flew from control panels as systems failed one by one. The beautiful research data they'd worked so hard to collect was now worthless. They would never live to deliver it. "Emergency power only, Commander," reported Zephlin, her voice barely a whisper. "Weapons offline, engines offline, life support failing." Through the chaos, Valethus could hear the terrified cries of his crew echoing through the ship's corridors. 23 souls, all dedicated to healing others, about to become victims of the galaxy's most ruthless predators. The largest Krathver ship moved closer, its docking bay opening like a hungry mouth. Valethus had heard the stories of what happened next. The boarding parties would storm through their ships, stunning everyone with neural disruptors. Then would come the harvesting organs removed while the victims were still conscious. There. Bodies sold piece by piece to black market dealers. Commander Zephlin whispered, tears streaming down her face. Should we... Should we overload the reactor? At least we could die with dignity." Valethus closed his eyes, feeling the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. All those people who would die from diseases they could have cured, all the children who would never grow up because the Red Plague would claim them. That's when the explosion lit up space like a newborn star. The nearest Krathver hunter ship simply disintegrated, its hull torn apart by a massive blast that sent debris spinning through the nebula. The other 6 ships immediately turned their weapons toward the source of the attack, their formation breaking apart in confusion. From the smoke and fire emerged a single human vessel. It was smaller than the hunter ships, its hull scarred and patched from countless battles. Burns marks covered its armor plating. Several weapon ports had been jury-rigged with equipment that didn't match the original design. This was clearly a ship that had seen too many fights and somehow survived them all. Iron Will veiled us. Read the name painted in bold letters across the ship's bow. It's human. The human ship moved unlike anything the Vextari had ever seen. Where other species flew with precision and calculated movements, this vessel darted and weaved like a living thing. It spun through space, firing weapons that seemed to have been borrowed from a dozen different civilizations. Unknown vessel. This is Captain Hansel Park of the Iron Will, came a voice over the communications channel. The human's accent was thick, but his intent was crystal clear. You picked the wrong ship to hunt today. The Krathver ships opened fire with everything they had, but the human pilot seemed to dance between the plasma bolts. His ship took hits. That should have destroyed it, but somehow kept fighting. Through the Silent Dawn's damaged sensors, Balthus could see the human vessel's hull glowing red-hot from weapons fire, yet it never stopped moving. Impossible, breathed Zephlin. One ship against 7? He's going to get himself killed. But as they watched, the human ship launched a spread of missiles that struck 2 hunter ships simultaneously. The explosions were brilliant against the nebulous blue backdrop. Suddenly the odds had shifted from 7-1 to 5-1. Velthus felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. The human had appeared from nowhere, facing impossible odds to save complete strangers. As the battle raged around them, the Vextari commander realized he was witnessing something remarkable. This wasn't just a rescue. It was the moment when everything would change. Captain Hansel Park gripped the control stick of the Iron Will. As enemy fire exploded around his ship, his damaged sensors flickered and sparked, showing him exactly what he was up against. 5 Krathver hunter ships still remained, each one twice the size of his converted mining vessel. Their weapons could punch through military-grade armor like paper. Biora, give me a full tactical analysis, Park said to his ship's AI, sweat beading on his forehead as he dodged another plasma blast. Hansel, this is suicide, the AI responded in a gentle female voice. 5 advanced warships against us and a crippled research vessel. Our chances of survival are less than 3%. Park's jaw tightened. He had named his AI after his younger sister, and hearing that voice always brought back memories he tried to forget. I don't care about the odds, Bira. Those moth people don't deserve to die today. The Iron Will shuddered as plasma fire grazed its hull. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge, but Park kept his focus on the enemy formation. Krathver. Ships were moving to surround him, their tactics precise and deadly. These weren't random pirates, they were professional killers. Incoming missiles, Biora announced calmly. Impact in 15 seconds. Park spun his ship hard to port, the artificial gravity struggling to keep up with the sudden movement. Missiles streaked past his viewport like deadly stars, missing him by mere meters. But he wasn't trying to run. He was positioning himself for his next attack. Remember the mining charges we picked up from the asteroid belt? Park asked, his fingers dancing across the weapon controls. Those were meant for breaking up space rocks, not fighting warships. Biora replied with what sounded like worry in her electronic voice. Today, they're going to break up something bigger. Park launched a spread of modified mining charges toward the nearest hunter ship. His mind drifted back 5 years. He had been a simple freight hauler then, running supplies between Earth colonies with his family. His wife Janae had been pregnant with their first child. His sister Biora had just graduated from the Space Academy, was planning to join him on cargo runs. The memory hit him like a physical blow. The Krathver Raider fleet had appeared without warning, just like today. But 5 years ago, there had been no one to help. No mysterious ship arriving at the last moment. Just screams over the radio and the sight of his family's transport being torn apart by plasma fire? Direct hit? No. Bjor's voice snapped him back to the present. One of the hunter ships was spinning out of control, its hull breached by the mining charges. But Hansel were taking heavy damage, hull integrity at 60%. Park could feel his ship groaning under the punishment. The Iron Will had started life as a simple asteroid mining vessel, but over the years he had transformed it into something else entirely. Every weapon he'd found, every piece of military equipment he'd salvaged from battlefields had been added to his ship. It was a floating arsenal held together by determination and hatred. Biora, remember that plasma cannon we pulled from the wreckage on Titan 7? Park asked, flipping switches to bring online weapons that had no business being on a civilian vessel. The one that nearly killed us when we tried to install it? That's the one. Fire it. The massive cannon, originally designed for destroying space stations, erupted from the Iron Will's hull. The beam of concentrated energy struck a Krathver ship's center mass, cutting through its armor like a hot knife through butter. The Hunter ship exploded in a brilliant flash, its destruction lighting up the entire nebula. "Impossible," came a snarling voice over the communications channel. "What kind of ship is that?" Park smiled grimly. The Krathver had never encountered anything like the Iron Will. Most species built ships with specific purposes in mind. Research vessels, cargo haulers, warships. But humans were different. They took whatever they could find and made it work. "This is Captain Vexcar of the Krathver hunting fleet," the alien voice continued. "Surrender now, human, and your death will be quick." Park's expression hardened. The voice reminded him of the last transmission from his family's ship. Biora had been trying to protect their mother when the raiders boarded. She had died fighting, just like he planned to do today. "Biora, patch me through to all frequencies," Park said quietly. "Channel open, Hansel." "This is Captain Hansel Park of the Iron Will," he broadcast to the Krathver fleet. "You want to know what kind of ship this is? It's the kind that doesn't run when good people need help. It's the kind that's going to send you straight to hell." The remaining 4 Hunter ships opened fire simultaneously, filling space with deadly plasma bolts. Park's ship bucked and rolled as the energy beam struck his hull. Armor plating vaporized, internal systems exploded, and the artificial gravity failed completely. "Hull integrity at 30%, Biora reported. "We can't take much more of this." But Park wasn't finished. He had spent 5 years preparing for this moment, even if he hadn't known it at the time. Every salvage operation, every dangerous job, every modification to his ship had been leading to this battle. "Biora, remember what I told you about humans?" Park asked, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead as he fought to control his damaged ship. "That you're all completely insane?" "That's right. And today, these alien bastards are going to learn why that makes us dangerous." The Iron Will dove toward the nearest Hunter ship, its damaged hull glowing red from weapons fire. To the Krathver, it must have looked like a suicide run. But Park had one more surprise waiting for them, Captain. Park's ship Iron Will screamed through space toward the nearest Krathver Hunter vessel, its hull glowing like a meteor. The alien commanders watched in confusion as the human ship showed no signs of slowing down or changing course. "He's going to ram us," snarled Captain Vexcar over the communications channel. "All ships, evasive maneuvers." But Park wasn't planning to ram them, not yet. At the last possible second, he fired his remaining mining charges directly into the space between the Hunter ships. The massive explosions created a field of spinning metal debris, turning the empty void into a deadly obstacle course. "Hansel, what are you doing?" Biora's voice crackled through the damaged speakers. "You've created a debris field right in the middle of the battle." "Exactly," Park replied, spinning his ship through the floating chunks of twisted metal. "We're fighting on my terms." The Krathver ships, built for open space combat, suddenly found themselves trapped in a maze of razor-sharp debris. Their massive hulls couldn't maneuver as quickly as Park's smaller vessel. He darted between the spinning chunks of metal like a fish swimming through coral, using the debris as cover while he lined up his next shot. "This is insane." Captain Vexcar's voice rose to a shriek. "No one fights like this." Park's answer came in the form of a plasma cannon blast that punched through the Hunter ship's weakened shields. The beam struck their engine compartment, sending the massive vessels spinning helplessly into the debris field. Metal fragments tore through their hull like bullets. Park could hear the screams of dying Krathru over the open channel. "Bora, record that," Park said coldly. "I want to broadcast it to the other ships." "Hansel, please don't do this." The AI begged. "This isn't who you are." But Park was already opening a channel to the remaining 3 Hunter ships. The death screams of their comrades filled the communications network, a horrible sound that made even the ruthless Krathver pause in their attack. "Listen carefully." Park's voice cut through the screams. "That's the sound your friends made when they died. You're next." The psychological effect was immediate. The Krathver were predators who relied on fear to control their victims. Had never been on the receiving end of such tactics. The remaining Hunter ships began to spread out, their formation breaking apart as panic set in. "What kind of monster are you?" Captain Vexgar demanded. Park's laugh was cold and empty. "I'm the monster you created 5 years ago when you murdered my family." The iron will suddenly burst from the debris field, its hull scarred and smoking, but still deadly. Park had ejected most of his cargo spare parts, mining equipment, even personal belongings, turning them into improvised weapons. A shower of metal objects struck the nearest hunter's ship like a meteor storm, overwhelming their point defense systems. "Hull breach on Deck 7, came a panicked voice from the Crathver ship. "We're venting atmosphere." But Park wasn't finished. He fired his grappling cables normally used for hauling asteroids directly into the hunter ship's damaged hull. The cables locked into place with a satisfying clang, and Park began to pull the massive vessel toward him. "He's dragging us!" Captain Vexcar screamed. "Cut the cables!" "Can't!" came the reply. "They're lodged too deep." Park's ship groaned under the strain of pulling a vessel 3 times its size, but he held on. As the hunter's ship was drawn closer, he activated his mining laser, a tool designed for cutting through solid rock. The beam sliced through the Crathver ship's armor like it was made of paper. Internal explosions on all decks. Came another panicked transmission. "The ship is breaking apart." The hunter vessel exploded in a brilliant flash, taking Park's grappling cables with it. The iron will spun wildly from the blast, its hull cracked in bleeding atmosphere. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge as systems failed one by one. "Life support at 20%, BORA reported. Weapons systems failing. Hansel, we need to retreat." "Not until they're all dead," Park replied. Blood streaming from his nose as he fought to control his damaged ship, the remaining to Crathver. Vessels had regrouped, but their confidence was shattered. They had watched their comrades die in ways that defied all tactical understanding. The human didn't fight like other species. He fought like a wounded animal with nothing left to lose. "This is Captain Vexgar. 2 all remaining ships," came a trembling voice over the communications channel. "We're dealing with a madman. Standard tactics don't work. He's using our own debris as weapons." Park's ship shuddered as another barrage of plasma fire struck its hull. The artificial gravity failed completely, and he found himself floating in the pilot's seat, held in place only by his safety harness. Sparks flew from every control panel, and the smell of burning electronics filled the air. "A hull integrity at 15%, Biora announced. "We're going to break apart if we take another hit like that." But Park had one more trick up his sleeve. He began spinning his ship in a tight spiral, using the movement to confuse the Crathver targeting systems. As he spun, he ejected his fuel tanks, not as an escape mechanism, but as improvised bombs. "Bora, detonate the fuel tanks on my mark," he ordered. "That will destroy us too, not if I time it right." The iron will continued its death spiral, drawing the 2 remaining hunter ships closer as they tried to finish it off. Park waited until they were perfectly positioned, then gave the command. Now, the fuel tanks exploded in a chain reaction that lit up the entire nebula. The shock wave struck the Crathver ships like a giant hammer, crushing their hulls and sending them spinning out of control. One ship's reactor went critical, adding its own explosion to the chaos. Park's ship was caught in the blast wave, its damaged hull screaming under the pressure. Somehow impossibly, the iron will survived. It tumbled through space, broken and burning, but still intact. "One ship left," Park whispered, his vision blurring from blood loss and exhaustion. "Just one more?" The final Crathver hunter ship hung motionless in space, its crew paralyzed by what they had witnessed. Their entire fleet had been destroyed by a single human in a converted mining ship. It was impossible, yet they had watched it happen. "Please." Captain Vexcar's voice was barely a whisper. "We surrender. No more killing." Park's finger hovered over the weapons control. After 5 years of hunting, 5 years of preparation, he finally had the chance for complete revenge. All he had to do was pull the trigger. Commander Vaelthus watched in amazement as the human ship Ironwool spun through space like a deadly dancer, leaving destruction in its wake. His own vessel, the Silent Dawn, drifted helplessly through the chaos, But something had changed. The constant barrage of enemy fire had stopped. The Krathver were too busy trying to survive the humans' impossible attacks to focus on their original prey. Zephlin Veilthus called to his science officer, "Can you restore power to our sensors?" His delicate companion's moth-like wings fluttered with nervous energy as she worked at her damaged console. "I'm trying, Commander. Plasma nets did serious damage, but I think I can reroute power from the medical bay." Sparks flew from the control panels as emergency power flickered. Back to life. The Silent Dawn's advanced sensor array designed for medical research suddenly came online with crystal-clear readings of the battle raging around them. "Commander, look at this." Zephlin gasped, her compound eyes reflecting the data streaming. Across her screen, the human ship is barely holding together. His hull is cracked in 17 places, and his life support is failing. Veilthus studied the readings with growing concern. Captain Park had saved them from certain death, but now his own ship was dying around him. The Vextari commander felt something he had never experienced before, the need to fight back. "Our sensors penetrate the Krathver ship's armor?" he asked. "Yes, Commander. Our medical scanners are designed to see through any material. We can map their entire internal structure." A plan began forming in Veilthus' mind. The Vextari had never been warriors, but they were brilliant scientists and engineers. Perhaps they could use their knowledge to help the human who had risked everything for them. "Open a channel to the Iron Will," Veilthus ordered. Static filled the communications system before Captain Park's voice came through, strained with pain and exhaustion. "Vextari ship, stay back. I can handle this." "Captain Park, this is Commander Veilthus," the alien replied. "Our sensors can see inside the enemy ships, can help you target their weak points." There was a pause as Park's ship barely avoided a plasma blast from the remaining Krathver vessel. "I'm listening. Ship attacking you now has a critical weakness in its power distribution system," Zephlin reported, her voice gaining confidence. "If you can hit the junction box on Deck 12, Section 7, you'll disable their main weapons." Park's laugh crackled through the damaged speakers. "Lady, I can't even see that ship clearly through all this smoke. How am I supposed to hit something that specific?" "We'll guide you," Veilthus said firmly. "Trust us." What followed was unlike anything either species had ever experienced. The methodical, precise Vextari began working in perfect harmony with the chaotic, instinctive human. As Park's ship darted through the debris field, Veilthus and his crew provided constant targeting information. 20 degrees port, Captain," Zephlin called out. "The junction box is directly ahead of you, range 400 meters. Park's mining laser lanced out, guided by alien precision. The beam struck exactly where the Vextari had indicated, and the Krathver ship's weapons suddenly went silent. "Direct hit!" Park shouted with fierce joy. "Our guns are dead." "Now target their engine compartment," Veilthus instructed, reading a fuel leak on their starboard side. One shot should cause a chain reaction. The partnership grew stronger. With each passing moment, the Vextarius advanced sensors could see things Park's damaged equipment couldn't detect. While Park's aggressive tactics created opportunities the peaceful aliens would never have imagined. "Captain, there's another ship coming up behind you," Zephlin warned. "But their shields are fluctuating. If you can time your attack to match their shield cycle, you can punch right through." "When?" Park demanded, his ship shaking under enemy fire. Now. Park's plasma cannon fired at the exact moment the Krathver shields dropped. The energy beam tore through their hull, causing massive internal explosions. The hunter ship began to break apart, its crew's screams echoing across the communications channels. Impossible. Captain Vexkar's voice was filled with disbelief. How are they doing this? The answer was simple but revolutionary. Two completely different species, with entirely different ways of thinking, had learned to work together. The Vextari provided the precision and intelligence, while Park provided the courage and firepower. Commander Zephlin reported excitedly, "I'm detecting structural weaknesses in the remaining ships. Humans' attacks have damaged them more than they realize." "Show me," Veilthus ordered. The sensor readings revealed that Park's unconventional tactics had indeed taken their toll. The surviving Krathver ships were holding together through sheer determination. But critical systems were failing throughout their hulls. "Captain Park," Valthus transmitted, "we have a plan. Can you create another debris field between the two remaining ships?" "I've got some mining charges left," Park replied, "but I'll have to get close." "Do it. We'll guide you to the perfect position." The iron will limp through space, its hull glowing red from heat damage. Park's ship was barely functional, held together by emergency repairs and sheer willpower. But with the Vextari guiding him, he was able to position himself exactly where he needed to be. "Release the charges in 3.2.1. now," Zephlin commanded. The explosion created a massive cloud of spinning debris between the two hunter ships. But this wasn't random destruction. The Vextari had calculated the exact trajectory of every fragment. The debris struck the Krathver vessels at precisely the right angles to exploit their structural weaknesses. "Hull breaches on both ships," Zephlin reported with growing excitement. "They're losing atmosphere." One of the hunter ships tried to escape, but Park was ready. With the Vextari providing targeting data, he fired his grappling cables with surgical precision. The cables wrapped around the ship's damaged hull, and Park began pulling it back into the debris field. Captain Vexkar screamed. "This is madness. This is justice," Park replied coldly. The second hunter ship exploded as debris punctured its reactor core. The first ship, trapped by Park's cables, was torn apart by the explosion. In the space of minutes, the odds had shifted from impossible to inevitable. "Two ships left," Valthus announced, his voice filled with amazement. "Captain, you've done the impossible." Park's ship was dying. The iron will had taken too much damage, and its systems were failing one by one. If they were going to finish this fight, it would have to be soon. Commander Park's voice was weak but determined. "I need one more favor. Can your sensors tell me which ship has their leader on it?" Valthus hesitated. He knew what the human was planning, and part of him wanted to protest. But these monsters had been prepared to harvest his crew for their organs. They deserved whatever fate awaited them. "The larger ship," he finally answered. "Captain Vexkar is on the vessel to your port side." Park's ship turned slowly toward its final target, smoke trailing from its damaged hull. The partnership between human and alien had turned the tide of battle. But the war was far from over. The two remaining Krathver hunter ships hung motionless in space, their hulls scarred and smoking from the relentless battle. Captain Vexkar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 5 of his ships had been destroyed by a single human in a converted mining vessel. It was impossible, yet the evidence floated around him in the form of twisted metal and burning. "Debris, Captain," his weapons officer reported, his voice shaking with fear. "The human ship is still approaching. But our sensors show it's barely functional. One more hit should finish it." Vexkar's reptilian eyes narrowed as he studied the readings. The iron will was indeed dying. Its hull was cracked in dozens of places. Atmosphere was bleeding from multiple breaches, and its weapon systems were operating on emergency power. But something about the human's approach made him nervous. "No," Vexkar hissed suddenly. "This is a trap. The human has been unpredictable from the beginning. We're leaving." His second-in-command looked confused. "We outnumber him 2-1. We can finish this. Look around you." Vexkar snarled, gesturing at the debris field that had once been his proud hunting fleet. "That's what happens when we underestimate humans." Signal the other ship we're retreating to hyperspace. But Captain Park had no intention of letting them escape. Through his cracked viewport, he could see the hunter ships beginning to turn away from the battle. Their engines were glowing brighter as they prepared to jump to hyperspace. "Bora," Park said quietly, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "How long before they can jump?" "Approximately 90 seconds, the AI replied. "Hansel, our weapons are too damaged to stop them. We should let them go." Park's hands moved across his control panel, calling up the ship's reactor status. Fusion core was running hot from the battle, its containment fields fluctuating dangerously. One more surge might cause a complete meltdown. "Bira, what would happen if we overloaded the reactor?" There was a pause before the AI responded. "Complete destruction, Hansel. The explosion would be equivalent to a small nuclear weapon." Nothing within 1,000 kilometers would survive. Including those two ships? Yes, but it would also kill us. Park stared at the retreating hunter ships, his mind racing. These were the same monsters who had murdered his family 5 years ago. If he let them escape, they would find other victims. Other families to destroy? How many innocent people would die because he chose to save himself? Boar, do we have any escape pods left? 1. The AI replied reluctantly. But Hansel, the timing would have to be perfect. You'd have less than 10 seconds to reach the pod and eject before the reactor explodes. Park's jaw tightened with determination. Then we better make those 10 seconds count. On the silent dawn, Commander Valthus watched in horror as the human ship changed course, heading directly for the retreating Krathver vessels. The Iron Will was accelerating despite its damaged engines, pushing itself beyond safe limits. "What is he doing?" Zeppelin whispered, her wings trembling with fear. "Something incredibly brave," Valthus replied softly. "And incredibly stupid." The Krathver ships detected the approaching human vessel and opened fire with their remaining weapons. Plasma bolts struck the Iron Will's hull, causing massive explosions that should have destroyed it instantly. But somehow, the ship kept coming. 60 seconds to hyperspace jump, Captain Vexcar announced. "Concentrate all fire on that human ship. I want it vaporized." But Park's ship was like a wounded animal making one final, desperate attack. It absorbed punishment that would have destroyed any normal vessel, held together by nothing but determination and the will to see justice done. "Biora, initiate reactor overload on my mark," Park ordered, his fingers flying across the control panel as he programmed the escape pod. "Han, please reconsider. There has to be another way." "There isn't," Park replied simply. "These monsters killed my family. I won't let them kill anyone else's. The iron will close the distance to the hunter ships with impossible speed." Park could see the alien crews scrambling at their stations, realizing too late what the human intended to do. "Reactor overload initiated," Biora announced. "You have 15 seconds. Park's hands moved with practiced precision, sealing the bulkheads and activating the escape pod's launch sequence. The ship shuddered around him as the reactor began its final countdown. 10 seconds, Biora warned. Park dove into the escape pod, his body slamming against the acceleration couch as the automatic systems took over. The pod's hatch sealed with a sharp hiss. 5 seconds. "Hansel, I want you to know." "I know, Biora. Thank you for everything." The escape pod shot out of the Iron Will like a bullet, its tiny engine pushing it away from the doomed ship at maximum acceleration. Through the pod's small viewport, Park could see the Krathver ships, desperately trying to complete their hyperspace jump. They were 3 seconds too late. The Iron Will exploded in a blast that lit up the entire. The fusion reactor released all its contained energy at once, creating a miniature sun that expanded outward at incredible speed. The two hunter ships, caught in the explosion's embrace, simply vanished in the brilliant light. The shockwave struck Park's escape pod like a giant's fist, sending it spinning through space. The pod's systems screamed warnings as radiation levels spiked beyond safe limits. Park felt consciousness slipping away as the pod's emergency systems fought to keep him alive. On the silent dawn, Commander Valthus watched the explosion with awe and horror. The human had sacrificed his ship and nearly his life to ensure that the Krathver would never hurt anyone again. "Commander," Zeppelin called out urgently. "I'm detecting a life pod in the blast zone. It's the human. Is he alive?" Valthus asked, barely, as pod's systems are failing. "If we don't reach him soon." Valthus didn't hesitate. "Divert all remaining power to the engines. We're going after him." The silent dawn limped through the debris field, its damaged hull groaning under the strain. The rescue ship extended its docking arms, carefully grasping the small escape pod that contained Captain Park. Minutes later, Valthus stood in the medical bay, looking down at the unconscious human. Park's face was pale from radiation exposure, but the ship's medical scanners showed he would survive. Why did he do it? Zeppelin asked softly. He could have escaped. He could have let them go. Veilthus touched the human's forehead gently with one delicate hand. Because that's what humans do. They sacrifice themselves for strangers. They fight against impossible odds. They never give up. Outside the medical bay's viewport, the Omega Nebula had returned to its peaceful blue glow. The Krathver hunting fleet was gone, reduced to scattered atoms in the cosmic wind. But more importantly, the galaxy had witnessed something new, the courage of a single human who refused to let evil triumph. The battle was over. But the legend of Captain Hansel Park was just beginning. Retried DD3 days after the battle, the damaged Silent Dawn limped into Nexus Station, a massive trading hub at the edge of civilized space. The station's docking bay was filled with ships from dozens of different species. But word of the fight in the Omega Nebula had already spread. Crowds gathered at the observation windows to catch a glimpse of the human, who had single-handedly destroyed an entire Krathver hunting fleet. Captain Hansel Park sat in the Silent Dawn's medical bay, his body still weak from radiation exposure. The Vextari medical equipment had saved his life, but he would need weeks of recovery before he was fully healed. Commander Veilthus entered the room carrying a steaming cup of human coffee, a rare luxury in this part of the galaxy. "How are you feeling, Captain?" Veilthus asked, his delicate features showing genuine concern. Park accepted the coffee gratefully, wrapping his hands around the warm cup. "Like I got hit by a freight hauler. But I'll live." He took a sip and looked up at the alien commander. "How's your crew?" "Alive, thanks to you," Veilthus replied. "The medical research data we were carrying will save millions of lives. Children who would have died from the Red Plague will now have a chance to grow up." Park nodded, staring out the medical bay's viewport at the busy space station. Ships came and went in a constant stream, carrying cargo and passengers across the galaxy. Somewhere out there, other predators were hunting innocent victims, just like the Krathver had been doing. Captain Veilthus said quietly, "I have to ask. Why did you risk everything for us? We were strangers. You could have jumped to hyperspace and escaped." Park was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing the rim of his coffee cup.
Ouch!
When he finally spoke, his voice was soft but firm. "Because someone has to. That's it?" Veilthus asked, surprised by the simple answer. "That's it," Park confirmed. "The galaxy is full of monsters who prey on the innocent. If good people don't stand up to them, who will? My family died because no one was there to help them. I couldn't. Let the same thing happen to you." Veilthus felt a deep respect for the human's simple wisdom. In the complex politics of galactic civilization, where every action was calculated for maximum benefit, Park's straightforward morality was both refreshing and rare. "The Vextari Council wants to meet with you," Veilthus said. "They're prepared to offer you anything you want: money, technology, a new ship. They want to hire you to protect our research vessels." Park smiled weakly. "I don't need payment for doing the right thing, but I'll accept a new ship. The Iron Will and I had a lot of history together." Over the next few days, news of the battle spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. The story grew with each telling a lone human ship, facing impossible odds, fighting with tactics no alien could understand, ultimately sacrificing itself to save strangers. The galactic news networks picked up the story, and soon every civilized world knew about the ghost of Omega Nebula. The Vextari Council was the first to act. They officially requested human protection for their research fleets, offering generous compensation and access to their advanced medical technology. But they weren't alone. The peaceful Zentari merchants sent ambassadors asking for escort services. The scholarly Keldan archaeologists wanted human guards for their expeditions too. Dangerous Worlds. Park found himself at the center of a media storm he never wanted. Reporters from across the galaxy descended on Nexus Station, all wanting to interview the human who had changed everything. He avoided most of them, preferring to spend his time in the station's quieter sections. Away from the crowds, it was during one of these quiet moments that he met Jinwoo Kim, a young human freighter pilot, who had traveled halfway across the galaxy to find him. Captain Park Jinwoo said nervously, "I heard about what you did. I lost my parents to raiders 3 years ago. I want to help." Park studied the young man, seeing something of his own past in Jinwoo's determined eyes. "This isn't a game, son. The galaxy is full of things that want to kill you." "I know," Jinwoo replied. "But like you said, someone has to stand up to them." Over the next week, more humans began arriving at Nexus Station. They came from all walks of life: former military officers, cargo pilots, miners, even a few scientists. All of them had heard the story of the battle in the Omega Nebula, and all of them wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves. Hae-Jin Lee, former Earth Defense Force sergeant, brought military experience and tactical knowledge. Subin Park, a brilliant engineer, offered to design new weapon systems. Dongmin Chen, a communications specialist, volunteered to coordinate operations across multiple star systems. "This is getting out of hand," Park told Commander Vale this one evening, as they watched another human ship dock at the station. "I never meant to start a movement." "Perhaps the galaxy needed this movement," Valethus replied thoughtfully. "For too long, peaceful species have been helpless against predators. You've shown us that there's another way." The Vextari Council had provided Park with a new ship, the Defiant Star, a sleek vessel that combined human engineering with alien technology. It was faster and more powerful than his old mining ship, but Park found himself missing the familiar controls of the Iron Will as he prepared to leave Nexus Station. A small fleet of human ships had assembled around the Defiant Star. Jinwoo commanded a converted cargo hauler called the Rising Phoenix. Chin piloted a military surplus fighter, renamed the Steel Resolve. Subin had modified a research vessel into the Innovative Spirit, while Dongman operated from the communication ship Clear Signal. "So what's the plan, Captain?" Jinwoo asked over the fleet's communication channel. Park looked out at the stars. Thinking about all the innocent people who needed protection, the galaxy was vast, full of both wonders and terrors. But for the first time in 5 years, he didn't feel alone. "We patrol the shipping lanes," he said simply. "We protect the innocent. We hunt the monsters who prey on the weak. And if we die," Hae-Jin asked bluntly. Park smiled, thinking of his sister Biora and the family he had lost. "Then we die fighting for something that matters." The small fleet of human ships departed Nexus Station together, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space behind them. The galactic news networks continued reporting on the ghost of Omega Nebula and his growing band of followers, but ahead of them lay the infinite expanse of the galaxy, full of people who needed protection and monsters who needed to be stopped. Humanity had found its calling among the stars, not as conquerors or explorers, but as guardians of the innocent. The legend of Captain Hansel Park was just beginning, but already the galaxy would never be the same.